Hi, everybody. Melanie Taylor here, the Director of Education at Eat, Breathe, Thrive. And it's such an honor today to speak with a fellow facilitator and someone that I am very grateful to call a friend, Lara Scriba. Laura is a yoga teacher, an intuitive coach, a Reiki practitioner, and numerologist with a background in emergency and community nursing. She loves looking at the world through an energetic lens and believes self discovery is a beautiful lifelong path that is deeply enhanced by the power of community. As a homeschooling mother of two wonderful boys, she enjoys adventure, reading, exploring nature, and sailing the world with her family. Laura, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's so good to see you. Is there anything I missed that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we'll get into all kinds of stuff when we talk. So it'll be good.
Yeah, it's great. So I guess I'll ask a question that I didn't actually plan, but I know this sailing around the world right now. Where in the world are you right now?
We're in Ensenada, Mexico right now. So
Yeah,
yeah, planning on
great.
heading into the Sea of Cortez. So excited for that.
Mm. I'm looking forward to all the pictures and videos.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, why don't we start learning a bit about you? Can you tell us a bit about what led to the work you're currently doing?
Yeah, so it's actually been really nice, like thinking back to, the very beginnings of things. But for me, my journey with Eat, Breathe, Thrive started, I was a new mom and I was living in Canada and had recently moved back to the States, where I was born, and had just become a yoga teacher. And so was starting to work in studios and doing that type of work and was teaching yoga for stress relief, but found I was really struggling with my anxiety, with cycles of depression, and with GI issues. And it was like almost ironic that I was the stress relief, yoga teacher, but would find myself in my car, like trying to meditate and, do all these things for myself just to even get myself in the classroom. So it was one of those that I knew that there was more healing that needed to be done. And I was pretty far out from, my eating disorder. It was, it had at least been 15 years. So that wasn't necessarily on the radar, but just really struggling with those things still. And then that's when I saw the campaign where she was on the roof and was emailing her, seeing if her training was going to come into California at any time. And ended up that where I was working, the owner of the studio also had a disordered background and was really excited about this. So we ended up going to the training together. And yeah, it just really beautifully unfolded after that and was exactly what I needed. Yeah, to heal. And it's been a
Yeah.
great journey. Yeah.
Hmm. I hadn't heard that story before. So it's kind of nice to hear about that.
Yeah.
Um, the work that you do and thinking like all of the work that you do, why is it so important to you that you do it?
I feel like it keeps me in conversation with myself and keeps me honest. Being, like I said, like feeling that where I was not integrity with the work that I was doing at that time, like, okay, there's something going on here, but it makes me maintain that connection and that honesty with myself of where am I? And also if I'm teaching self-care and compassion and all of those things, am I being that for myself as I move through? And I think, like as it comes with my bio, like recognizing that was my biggest thing. I always felt like it was my recovery was like a journey to be done. Like you're supposed to be complete and finished and move on from it. And it was that realization of like, it's an act of self-discovery. And when you can look at it from that lens of like compassion and curiosity and just like excitement of like, who am I becoming next? What is ahead of me? And like what is next to unfold? It shifts from that lens of feeling like you're broken and you have to fix yourself, right? And so I love seeing, the aha moments in the students' eyes when they realize like, oh my gosh, I can soften into this versus I need to like hit it on its head like until it finally goes away type of feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like this work is just so beautiful. And yeah, I just fell in love with it, and just any way I can do it, it makes me
Hmm.
happy. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you're speaking to some really important parts about our human experience, like recovery is not linear.
Yes.
And while I think we do recover from certain things and are able to move on, you know, recovering from being human beings, that human beingness doesn't go away. So all of our patterns and ways of being reminded of things that seem so simple and yet so complex as self-care and checking in with ourselves of how we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I I can relate to everything you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, is a big part of it as well, is just acknowledging that everybody also, when it comes to big kind of mile markers in your life, like whether it's having those transition points, having children, moving,
Mhm.
do you have a network to support you in those times? And a lot of times I feel like a lot of people, and I was in the same place of, with moving and things, I didn't have family around, and you're shifting to a new environment where you don't have your closest friends near you anymore. And uh, creating this, environment where I have a international community, and just the Eat, Breathe, Thrive community as well, where you can really tap in
Mhm.
and talk about the more challenging, more personal, those deeper conversations that are not the, you know, run of the mill conversations that you
Mhm.
have day to day. Like, I feel like in this community, we can really drop in and drop in hard and know exactly kind of where somebody's been, in a general sense. I mean, we may not know each other's intimate details of our story, but there is a
Mhm.
sense of where we've come from, and that commonality in that. So that way, that's the baseline, and then you can move from there. And I feel like you can just really drop in much deeper, and yeah,
Mhm.
just really heal from that place.
Yeah. Being connected in tender human experiences. I just, yeah. I feel like you answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is the favorite part of your work?
That moment when they realized that they had the answer all along, that's my
Mm.
favorite. When they realize that they're not looking at someone else or a book or a theory to have the answer, that when they are allowed the space to process, they realize that they knew all along. It's just allowing it to, release or come out of their mouth, or have it be that shift in their brain. um yeah, I think that's my
Mhm.
favorite. And you see it on their
Yeah.
face. There's a softness that comes in.
Yeah, I was as you're saying that, it's kind of like all the faces that I've seen that where that's happened, myself included. There's like that softening word you're using, there's a softening of the shoulders, of the jaw, like the eyes soften, like everything is like lighter and feels um almost less challenging, right? The aha moment isn't necessarily the solution, but it's the start of it.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's transition a bit and talk about the study. And so I know, as a facilitator, you were there really at the very beginning. And so what got you excited about doing the study and what was your role in the study?
Yeah, so I mean, I was a facilitator for the 7-week program as we went through and did the research study. For me specifically, I think I have a background in nursing, and there's always been, as I got into energy work and all these different things, it was always felt like there was a balance, right? Like as I was like studying energy work and yoga and all of these things, it was, and especially way back in the day, like 90s, I mean, it was kind of laughed at, like, really, is this really what we're is this really what you're reading, Lara? And and seemed as something that wasn't really crucial when it came to the healing process or in recovery. And so it always feels like there was this need to have a mix of like the Western Eastern balance for me and my brain and my body, to kind of like, okay, it needs to feel like it's got a little bit of weight to it in that Western world. Um,
Mhm.
and as experience goes through, like, you have enough innate knowledge to know this stuff works, but it's really nice to have it backed up. But the other thing is just recognizing, when it comes to access to care, how important the study is when it comes to that. Not only having the information and the kind of backing the power that yoga has and recovery and all of that, but it also comes when it comes to speaking in the language that insurance needs to hear. And so it kind of ticks off those boxes, so that way not only is it become legitimate in the eyes of Western medicine, that's fine, but we really need to get it in where we can have insurance cover this kind of work, and where it can fill the gap. I feel like that there is such a huge gap when it comes to releasing out of treatment and then having this space where it might be immediate that you get like recovery groups, but when it comes in that in between, like I said, like you go 15 years in recovery and there isn't anywhere to really communities to really tap into to help support through the longer term. And I think that that's really, really important for people to have access to that. And of course, more importantly, I mean, the more we know the value of it and it can be seen, then it becomes preventative versus it being a reactive, like after the fact. If this becomes a normal conversation that is being had, with like our kids, and being offered to more teens or children as being a way to have an emotional awareness, I mean, that's what is key, I think, in all of this. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you spoke a lot to why the study really matters. And yeah, the sense of having the embodied experience many of us have experienced and know and have felt, but in a way that we can communicate with people who maybe don't follow a yoga modality or haven't been in that practice before, but also making it appropriate scientifically, like how to connect with the actual measures. The typical things we need in our Western society is that the measures and proof behind the work. That's such an important part. So I'm going to shift and ask a question that we didn't talk about. I'm curious what surprised you the most in your experience, whether that's been your whole journey with EBT or when you first started teaching this curriculum. What surprised you the most about your experience?
I think that there's so many things, Mel, there's so many things. I think the biggest thing is that there is never an end to the unfolding. Like, we can teach the same material over and over and over again, and there's a new awareness that occurs, or a new level or depth of tenderness that comes in, or accountability, or whatever that is, like, because it's a theme that you constantly are coming upon, and because you're wanting to have such a clarity about it as you are, stepping in front of people and teaching the material, it's just such a beautiful blending of like your own growth along with the growth of the students that are, people that are taking the course with you. And that it just never gets old. Like, I feel like there's certain things that sometimes it's like, okay, like that was nice, and you want to move on to something else. But I feel like every single time I teach, it's the same concepts, but like such a beautiful way that it unfolds, both for myself and for others when I witness it. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. I'm listening to that and kind of like scanning through my own history with it. And it's I think it's almost the gift of this curriculum. And it's not about the tools or the things, it's the community and the aspect of sharing those human experiences and witnessing each other and holding space for that. I was also really present to how often we see people take the program more than once, and that like the why, like what I have access to right now, what can I take in right now, and the next time I take it in, it'll be different, which is no different, I think, than how we experience it as facilitators. Each time we go through it, each time the conversation comes up or somebody shares something, there's like a shifting or a deeper awareness, a deeper learning that can take place that you so powerfully spoken to.
Yeah, well, and I think it's that shift from knowledge. Like, we all ad nauseum read books and this and that and feel like we're like taking in and seeking, that seeking kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And it's that shift into that body wisdom. And like I was saying, like that tapping into, their own sense of self-trust. And I think that is what's so beautiful when they realize that they themselves can be, or I can myself be a reliable source. And I think that especially with eating disorders, I know for me, my self-trust was completely eroded. And I felt like because I couldn't seem to handle myself, needed to hand over, whatever, like to other people to kind of make decisions for me, because I was not able to make good choices for myself. And though I think there is a time and place for that as you're moving through recovery, until you're in a safe place, there's a sense of feeling lost afterwards. And so I think it's so important to come back and to get to know the self again, and to learn to rebuild that trust, and that awareness of what's going on within you, and learn to tend to that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we were speaking about this in a session yesterday, actually, the difference between that, I call it the ed voice that muddles up what is true, what the body is communicating, and interprets it in a very disjointed, um, almost toxic way, and the truth of what your body's actually communicating. They're very separate. And so when we start to recover the disorder, now we're a bit lost because we haven't been listening to that embodied wisdom, that inner wisdom for so long. We've been listening to the disjointed voice.
Right.
And coming back to that is scary and
Yeah.
uncertain. And that building of trust is such an important part.
Yeah.
So I have one other question. What would you want someone who's considering the series to know?
How powerful community is. I just think that often is the deterrent. People feel afraid to come into community and have these conversations, to feel like they aren't, like, like when there's that argument, in the recovery, aren't sick enough or too sick, or like whatever, like wherever you are in that phase of things. And it was interesting because I actually spoke with somebody that was in the program, in the research all the way back then, just the other day, and just talking about like the scope of the different places that people were on in their journey when it came to, being able to accept their bodies and their view of things, and where they were in the challenge of that. Yet it just so beautifully worked together, because whether or not you had that same similar struggle, it was allowing you to have a deeper awareness of what people around you might be going through, even if that might not be your personal struggle. But I think the biggest thing is that no matter what the histories are, maybe past traumas or whatever else it is, that there is this shared felt sense that people are going through, and it's a similar journey. And there is so much healing that happens when you realize like that you aren't alone. And I think that like no matter who you are, it is so powerful to be held in that space. And you get so close with the people that are in this journey, because you're having such deep conversations, and you're allowing yourself to go in these really tender places that you don't even normally allow for yourself to go in. And it's a shared experience. And you hold that so tenderly for one another. And it feels really amazing to be in that space. So even though it may feel scary to show up in that way, you're most definitely not alone. And you can just amplify your kind of like speed of awareness and healing and all of those things just by coming into connection with other people who are experiencing the same thing. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couldn't say it better, my friend. Is there anything I didn't ask about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so. I feel like we pretty much covered a lot of things. Like I just can't. This has been such powerful work, and it has allowed me. I'm so grateful because it has allowed me to become all those things that I had, imagined for myself. I mean, I started my nursing journey hoping that I was one day gonna end up in the, back in the ED unit and be a nurse for someone else, in that same capacity. And it's just so funny because our dreams are often so limited. Like I never imagined that I would be able to show up for people in the way that I do now. And it's so far beyond, my wildest dreams of being able to be so present, so loving, and hold a compassionate space for other people, all while still doing my own work. And it's just a wonderful community to be in. And I just invite you all to come in and be a part of it. It's really beautiful.
Mm. Well, it's an honor to be part of that community with you, and to be alongside you. I love what you said there about holding space for others as we do this work, but also for ourselves, because we are always going to be human and always need that. Thank you so much for taking out time. It's been such a pleasure to just pause and talk about this work together with you, and such an honor, I think, for our community to find out a bit more about a little bit behind the scenes and what it's like, and the fact that we too are human beings and going through similar journeys. So, yeah, thank you so much, Lara, for your time and for your gift to our community.
Thank you so much, Mel, for having me.